Hey everyone, this is Jen and you're watching BPD Woman. On this channel, you will learn how to more effectively live and manage with your borderline personality disorder, or manage more effectively with your complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or you'll learn how to more effectively manage your emotions if you consider yourself a highly sensitive person. My goal is to share my wisdom, experience, knowledge, and therapeutic treatments that have helped me along the way to get me to a more effective place in my life. And while I am not completely recovered, and while I deal with behaviors and thoughts about BPD, I try to keep going the best I can. And so that's the wisdom that I want to impart to you. While I am not a therapist or a life coach or somebody that specializes in borderline, I can answer one question that almost none of those folks cannot, which is, what's it like to live with borderline personality disorder? I was diagnosed over 20 years ago, and I have lived with the disorder for, I believe, 30 years. In that time, I've done about a half a dozen DBT courses. I've read every book, every workbook. I do the homework, I read the books, I do the research, I have a YouTube channel, I do one-on-one group therapy, you get it. I'm pretty committed. Well, if that all sounds good to you and you are interested in positive solution-based approaches to recovery, please hit subscribe and the bell below so you never miss a beat. I produce anywhere from 3 to 5 videos each week, all something new. Let's get going. So today I want to talk about a topic that it kind of just showed up today in my brain. And it's like, well, I haven't done a video in a few days. Let me do a video. What should I do? And within this same 5-minute range, I said something to myself like, why does no one ever text me? Why do I always have to text my friends first? Well, that's probably because they don't like me, and I'm a bad person, and why don't people like me, right? And so that one thought just started to go off on this trail by itself. And I responded to myself with, you don't know that. You do not know that, Jen. Okay, you do not know why. It hurts, yes. You can validate that it hurts and it feels lonely that they haven't texted you and that you always seem to do the texting first. But it doesn't mean that they don't like you. And so that's how I came to today's video, because I want to talk about 13 positive phrases that I use to myself, and if not on a daily basis, then on a weekly basis, that help me through my BPD and challenge some of those maladaptive thoughts and patterns of thinking that ease into your brain and that you don't even know sometimes are there. And then I'm going to share 5 or 6 phrases, and I just kind of mentioned one, didn't I, that I find that I sometimes use that are not helpful. And as we get started in this video, type below for me in the comment section, what are some phrases that you've told yourself that have really helped you challenge some negative thoughts or stopped you from acting on some ineffective maladaptive behaviors? And then also share some thoughts on things that you catch yourself telling yourself on a pretty frequent basis that are not helpful and that are negative. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can also email me at womanbpd@gmail.com. So that's WOMAN bpd@gmail.com. So let's get going. We're going to start with 13 positive phrases that I tell myself to keep my BPD in check and to challenge those negative thoughts and patterns of thinking. Let's get going. So the first really important thing that I tell myself, and then I find that I say very often to myself, is, I don't know that. This is probably the term that I use most often, and that is, I don't know that. I do not know that. And I use this phrase most often when I feel that I am drawing a conclusion about a situation or a person or an event that I simply don't have all of the information for. So here's a few examples. I had a new client meet and greet this weekend, right? And she has many dogs, and it could be a really great financial opportunity for me if she starts hiring me on a consistent basis. And so we briefly chatted on email, and we set up a time for meet and greet. And so the morning of the meet and greet, I texted her and I said, hey, I'm really looking forward to meeting you. I'll be there at 11:30. So I sent this around 9:10. Didn't hear anything. And I started to think, is she ghosting me? Like, did she read something bad about me on the internet? Like, does she not want to talk to me? Am I gonna show up and she's not gonna be there? I started to come up with all of these interpretations about why I hadn't heard from her. And I said to myself, I don't know that, okay? And I went over, I showed up as a professional, and she was there, and we had a great conversation. We talked for 2 hours, and right as I was about to leave, a text message from her came through. And I said, oh, I just got a text message from you. And she goes, oh, what was it? And I said, oh, and I showed her. I was like, it's a little smiley face. And she's like, oh my gosh, I sent that today at 10:30 in the morning, and it had just reached my phone. So it was a technology issue, right? Here I was thinking, she hates me, she's ghosting me, she read something about me, I'm gonna reinforce my negative, low opinion of myself. Instead, I said, I don't know that, I don't know what's happening here. And what happened? Later I found out that it was simply a communication cell phone error, right? So what is the lesson here? Well, the lesson is twofold. One, was it uncomfortable to sit with that ambiguity, not knowing what was going to play out? Yes. I say this a lot. Having to sit steady in that boat and living in that ambiguity is tough. And ambiguity can last minutes, hours, days, months, years. You may not know. You just may not know some things, right? And that's tough, because if you have abandonment issues and fear of people not liking you, then you are quick to assume that a situation or response or non-response is in somehow reinforcement of this, people don't like me. So the second thing to learn from this is that had I acted out on this notion that she's ghosting me, had I gone with that, I could have retaliated by saying, well, if you're not going to answer me, I'm not going to come over, right? I could have just not shown up for the meeting. I could have let it stew and then shown up to the meeting in like a bad mood. I didn't do any of those things. I simply showed up and I said, I don't know what's happening here, but I'm going to show up because that's what I professionally set out to do. And I want my name to be associated with the consistency of showing up for people. Had I acted on those negative thoughts, I would have trashed the relationship, made a bad name for myself, and then got on this emotional Ferris wheel of negative and anxiety-ridden emotions, right? So this is just one example of where I don't know, or I don't know that, or I'm not sure of that, however you want to phrase it, comes into play, okay? So that's phrase number one. Let's go to helpful phrase number two. I'm too dysregulated to think clearly. Right? This is phrase number two. I'm too dysregulated to think clearly. If you're going through a specifically more intense or stressful situation, you may feel bombarded by not only your daily patterns and routines and responsibilities like work or children or taking care of the pets or showering yourself or what have you, paying your bills. But then you may also have, let's say, an emergency happen, right? Like someone's sick, or you get in a car accident, or there's some trouble at work, right? And then you're really dealing with a lot of stress. And so you have this pressure on you to make all sorts of decisions and solve them and go about your daily life. And sometimes you're just too much in a place of dysregulation to do that. And so it's helpful for me then to say, I'm too dysregulated to think clearly right now, and therefore I am not going to make any decisions. And I use this particularly when I'm tired, or I'm not feeling well, or when I'm about to get my period and my PMS and my emotions are higher. When I find myself thinking in a more negative mood, I will say to myself, okay, I'm too dysregulated to act on any of this. And that takes me to positive phrase number three, which is, I need a break. So positive tip number 3, something that I tell myself internally is I need a break. Like sometimes I'll just even say that out loud, like I need a break. I'm too tired. I haven't eaten. I've worked all week. You know, today's Sunday and I've slept most of the day. It's been really beautiful here, as you can see. But I had one client today. I was supposed to work this evening. Not scheduled, but I can work my second job if I want. I had my dog to take care of, and I said, okay, I'm gonna do blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna catch up on all of the things on Sunday that I haven't done at the rest of the week. And man, I have just been beat all day. And I woke up late, and I took the dog out, and I saw my client. I came back, I gave my dog a nice walk. I took another nap. I just got up, right? And I'm like, you know what? I'm not working today. I need a break. I need to catch up on making some food and organizing my calendar and just resting. Like I just need a break. Like I'm tired. I'm physically tired. And so listening to your body can help you in so many ways, but primarily it helps you in this physical and emotional state of mind. So why? So you make better decisions. Let's go to positive tip number 4 that I tell myself. Having borderline or another emotionally dysregulating disorder often can leave you with low self-esteem because you've been invalidated most of your life and you find it hard to validate yourself or trust your perceptions. And I've gotten better at this over the years, but it can be very difficult. And so you may find yourself thinking, well, what do they think about me? And I bet they think this about me and they don't like me and all of this other stuff. When I will say, hey, what do I think about me? You know, what do I think? And this is a great way to calm down that nervous energy and bring it back to yourself and stay in this moment of, okay, I have fulfilled my obligations. I have been friendly to people. I'm trying my best. I'm not perfect at everything, but I'm going to keep going. And you know what? I've shown up. My business is going well. I'm doing well. And that's all you can ask of yourself, right? Like, what do I think about me? Bring that back to you rather than going out to 30 other people and wondering what they think. Because first of all, you're not going to know. And second of all, if you ask them, they may give you an answer that maybe you don't like. That's not even, true. It may just be their opinion. And then you're going to internalize that, and that's just going to put you on an emotion roller coaster. So ask yourself, what do I like about me? Let's go to what I tell myself, tip number 5. What I tell myself, number 5, is very close to number 4, which is, what do I think about them, right? Have you ever considered this? How many times have you off the top of your head, how many times have you heard yourself say, what do they think about me? I wonder what they're thinking about me. Do they like me? I bet hundreds and hundreds and thousands, right? Maybe tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands maybe. I know I have. Now ask yourself, how many times have you asked yourself this? What do I think about them? Have you ever asked yourself that? Has it been a low number? Maybe you're getting stronger at asking yourself about that. I know for me, this is only a recent development in the last couple of years where I've stopped worrying about, like, do they like me? I mean, of course, I care if people like me and I want them to be my friend, but not if they don't want to, right? Like, I used to chase people that didn't want anything to do with me. Why? Because I felt lonely. But in the end, chasing somebody who doesn't want you and worrying and obsessing about, and I know rumination is hard, and I've done a rumination video, you can check that one out, is hard to break away from. But you take back your self-esteem and your control, and you can get more selective in who you let in your life when you start considering, do I like them? And what do I think about them rather than what do they think about me? It can become, I think it's more important to say, what do I think about them rather than letting the sentence, what do they think about me, take precedence. Let's go to positive tip number 6. Oftentimes, again, if I'm feeling dysregulated, and this goes back to a few phrases ago, if I'm feeling really dysregulated and I think that I need a break and I think that I'm dysregulated, another phrase that I tell myself that can help, phrase number 6 is this my borderline talking? And so what that means is, am I leaning harder on my cognitive distortions, right? Am I going more into black and white thinking? Am I making snap decisions? Am I jumping to conclusions without getting the answers? These are all cognitive distortions that I'm naming, and I've done a lengthy video about cognitive distortions, so check that out. So I will say to myself, is this my borderline thinking, or am I thinking clearly? And generally the next question is, do I need a break? Okay, let's go to tip number 7. Tip number 7, and actually this is something that I put on my daily calendar, so I see it every day that I open up my iPhone calendar, is where do I want my energy to go for the day, right? You may have lots of things that you want to get done. Some are more important than others, and then you put on top of it that you may become dysregulated throughout the day, or you may get an upsetting phone call or piece of news, or maybe your water goes out for the day, right? And then now you're becoming angry about that, or you're pursuing this other thing that leads you down this rabbit hole of all the other things that you wanted to get done for the day. And this can kind of go in line with the, at the beginning of the year, I did a video on creating a goal board. And so I look at the goal board, it's actually right here next to me, and I look at the goal board and I look at my calendar events for the day, and I say to myself, where do I want my energy to go for the day, right? So today, the way that I answered that question was, I'm gonna rest. My energy is sapped. I need to rest today and do the things and rearrange my calendar and just watch movies and make chocolate chip cookies. I need to do that today so that for the rest of the week, I have that energy to go out there and go at it again. So that's number 7. Where do I want my energy to go today? And consider when you start becoming dysregulated and you start crying, because I know for me, if I cry for a solid 10, 15, 20 minutes, I'm zonked for the rest of the day. That really takes it out of me. So consider that before you allow your emotions to go down a triggering rabbit hole. Let's go to positive phrase number 8. Number 8, this other thing that I will tell myself, it can go in a number of ways. Primarily for me, I say it to myself when I'm feeling angry or vengeful, or I want to take revenge on someone. But it can also be used in other kinds of decision-making processes. And what I say to myself is, how is this going to make me feel, right? How many times have you, I'll be quite honest, if somebody's broken up with me or a friendship ends, I immediately start to think of ways that I can get back at them. I know an ex-friend who hasn't paid the IRS in 20 years, okay? That's a federal offense. You could go to prison, right? Go to federal prison. And we had a personal falling out. She was hiring me every day for work. She stopped hiring me. And I said, I understand we had a personal disagreement. You're going to hold it against me personally. And she said something to the effect of, well, blah, blah, I don't know, we got in some fight. And so I thought, I'm going to get her back. I'm going to report her to the IRS for tax evasion. And so I put that on this happened back in December. This was a while ago, okay? And now we're in mid-March. I said, I'm gonna get her back. I'll show her. And then it's been sitting on my calendar since January, February, March. And I kept moving it from day to day. Well, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, I'll do it tomorrow. And would it be right to turn her in? Absolutely. Yes, she's absolutely obstructing justice and committing a federal crime, and also tapping into benefits that rely, unemployment, that rely on people paying their federal income tax, and she's not doing that. So could I? Yes. Is it right? Yes. But I would be doing it out of spite. I would be doing it out of revenge, right? And how would that make me feel? Not good. That would be bad juju points in my pocket that I don't want to deal with. So finally, I said, I've been moving this event for 4 months on my calendar. Today is the day I delete it, and then I deleted it, I don't know, recently. So how is this going to make me feel is a question that I ask myself before I act on a behavior that I know could be morally compromising. Let's go to number 9. A ninth very common phrase that I ask myself is this worth it? And that's that sort of piggybacks on this, how is this going to make me feel? And both are kind of related to either acting on some kind of very emotional energy or revenge or anger. And there are absolutely times when getting angry and showing your anger is worth it. When you are physically endangered, you know, like I've talked about walking my dog and nearly being hit by a car. That is okay for me to get very verbally angry, to stop that car and tell that motherfucker, you don't play like that, okay? But there are other instances where my anger isn't worth it. Road rage is one. I mean, I'm not saying I don't participate in road rage, I clearly have, but more often, and the older I get, you know, if people are speeding or they're tailgating me, you know, maybe I would brake check them, or I would like keep them from passing. Now I don't care. I'm just like, you know, this is not worth it to me. I don't want to get in an accident. I don't want to ruin the new car I got. I don't want to be late for work. It's not worth it. So before, again, you act on something, and generally I ask myself this: if it's coming from a place of anger, I say to myself, is this worth it? Let's go to the positive number 10 thing that I tell myself. Something else that I'll tell myself that will help me with dealing with my borderline behaviors or patterns of thinking is, am I being triggered here? So often I may hear a phrase or a word that immediately evokes in me very strong emotions. And that could be something like, you know, you're crazy, right? That can be very triggering to me. Or you'll always be alone. Nobody ever really says that to me. That's kind of something I say to myself. Or, you know, I don't know. But put your trigger word here. And you might have a very intense response. And sometimes you may hear this word or a phrase and it's not actually being said to you. Or, you know, the person saying it may not intend it to be hurtful to you, but you become triggered. And before you act on that, or before you accuse, or before you engage in a conversation and not an argument, so take a minute, distract yourself, get some emotional distance, I find it helpful to say, am I being triggered here? You know, did they tap into something? And now listen, if you're being triggered, you know, if they're saying something like, if they're degrading you as a woman, or they're, you know, somebody's calling you a faggot, or someone's like making fun of something that's important to you, like your therapy, like, oh, going to crazy talk again, huh? Like, I don't know, some shit like that. If that's triggering, and you're hearing that a lot about you, consider Xing that person out of the equation, because if they keep you in a state of triggering and negativity, is that helping you or hurting you? Let's go to tip number 11, something that I tell myself. One of the positive things that I tell myself here at number 11 is it can be used two ways. And the phrase is, so what? So what? So what? This could be, normally I use this as a way to stop myself from worrying or obsessing about something that I don't have all the information out of yet. And again, this comes back to waiting and sitting in that ambiguity. But I may say something to myself like, so what, right? So like, are they gonna pay me? Are all my clients gonna pay me on time? Like, what if they don't pay me anymore? What if this happens? And then I'll just be like, okay, so what? Like, if they stop paying you, can you control that? By the way, not many of them ever do. But can I control that? No. Can I take stock, or can I inquire why? If I find it important to me, you know, if I find that many people are backing away from me, I think then, you know, you have numbers there to suggest that it's perhaps a behavior that you might want to consider looking at and communicating more effectively with others. But so I'll say that kind of to disarm my anxiety or worry. But in other times, right, someone may say something to try to bully or hurt me, and I'll be like, yeah, so what with that opinion? Like, that's oh, you think that? Okay, so what? And you know, I may not retort, or I'll retort with like cool information, and you know, no, so saying so what not only disarms you, but it also can disarm another person and help you from being dysregulated. Let's go to my next tip. Last positive tip here on this list, something that I tell myself is, I can't control that. but I can control this. So oftentimes, again, if you worry, if you have anxiety, if you feel invalidated, if you don't trust your self-worth, if you don't trust your perceptions, if you fear people are going to leave you, you can definitely get stuck in this fear and worry. And eventually, you'll have to come to a conclusion that I can't control that. I can control how much I worry though, right? So I can't control what someone may or may do, whether my friends will stick around, whether people will be with me, whether I'll always be in my marriage, whether I'll always have this job around. But I can control how I feel about it, and I can control how I work on the relationship or the job, and how I conduct myself. I can control that piece. And that brings with it a lot of peace and also power. Power because you're not giving in to the worry and anxiety that is gonna do what? When I get worried and anxiety and I let that, I act on that, what happens then is I actually work against my goals and I push away a person or I push away a job. And then the very thing that I could have controlled over here has now been disrupted because I let the thing that I can't control get so worrisome and out of control. So what's an example? Okay, an example is, we'll go back to my very first example at the top. I texted this woman, I've been in this kind of vulnerable position about money and with the pandemic, and I have this meet and greet and I've texted her in the morning and we've set up this appointment, but I haven't heard from her all week, and she didn't text me back when I confirmed that I was on my way over, so will she hire me, right? And I thought, well, what if she doesn't? What if she ghosts me? What if she's not there? And I made this following piece message to myself. I can't control if she's not there. I can't control if she doesn't decide to hire me. I don't know why she hasn't decided to hire me, but I can control how I act. And the way that I choose to act is that I'm going to show up on time as stated, which I did. And then there was no problem. It was, like I said, it was simply a miscommunication with the phone. So I can't control this, but I can control that. Take back your power. Now, those are the 13 positive things that I tell myself to negate or rein in the negative thoughts that my borderline can lead me down. And now I want to touch on a few, 5 or 6 here, phrases that I do hear myself, creeping into myself that aren't helpful. And I want you to be able to identify them so that you can stop them if you want them to be stopped too. So let me name a few of those. So one of the kind of self-deprecating, hurtful things that I say to myself is, I shouldn't have said that. Why did I say that? Oh my God, I shouldn't have told somebody that much. Oh my God, why did I overshare? So, I'll say this, I shouldn't have said that. I have this old saying, don't should on yourself, which is this, when somebody tells you don't, shouldn't, you must, you ought, you better, those are all self-imposed demands. And you can put demands on yourself too. And any demand is not healthy, it's a request. So saying something to myself like, why did I say that, implies the following. I don't believe enough in myself. I don't feel I'm appropriate. And I think that others are gonna think that I'm silly. So when I find myself doing that, I will say something, and you can apply this following advice to all of these next 5 or 6 phrases I'm about to throw your way. You can throw all of this out the door by saying something to yourself like, yes, that was fine of me to say. Why not? I'm a person. I'm not just my BPD, right? Yes, this is okay. I'm okay. Let's go to the negative phrase number 2 that I sometimes hear myself saying that helps me not recover from my BPD. They don't like me. No one likes me. No one will ever like me. I don't get invited anywhere. I don't have any friends. These are all, for me, big loneliness constructs that really play into my low self-esteem and BPD. And if I don't have friends, then I don't feel good, and then I think that it's all because of my borderline. So what I will tell myself is, I have friends. Maybe I don't have a best friend right now. Maybe I don't have a close friend right now. I just read some article, actually, and it was something like, 1 of 6 people that you see on the street, I may have the number wrong, but it was a pretty high number. 1 in 6 to 7 people that you see on the street don't have very many close friends either. Well, because we know 1 in 7 people don't have borderline, we can safely say that not everyone who's lonely or doesn't feel like they have a lot of friends or close friends is borderline. Simple, right? So if I find myself going down this, I'll stop myself, I'll interrupt myself, and I say, I do have some friends, look at these people that have texted me, you know, and I'll keep putting myself out there to meet others. Let's go to the third phrase. The third phrase is a comparative phrase. While comparisons can sometimes be helpful, they can also be detrimental. How so? Have you ever felt yourself saying something like this? Man, they really have it figured out. Look at all of their success. Man, they have more money in their retirement account than I do. Whew. Why do they have such a great family and I don't? Why am I such a loser? They have everything. They've really know. You know, I did this video a while back and I forget which one, so forgive me. But in it, I talked about this study where those with borderlines often turn over their power to others, thinking that other people have things figured out when they don't, right? We feel that other people are the experts in life areas that we're not. And we think that quite a bit. At least I do, and I'm sure maybe you can relate to this as well. And the fact of the matter is that you never know what goes on in someone's life, okay? Somebody could be married for 20 years and be desperately unhappy. Someone could live in a beautiful house and have a lot of cars and look like they're doing well, but be $1 million in debt, right? First of all, comparisons are not helpful or healthy because they're never going to make you happy. They won't, right? What can be better for me to say is, this is what I have right now. I'm pretty happy with it. I like where I'm at, and I'm going to keep going. Let's go to the, I think, third thing. Let's go to another phrase that I use that's not helpful. How long till I burn this relationship? Probably 2 or 3 months till this burns up. How quick before they see that I'm nuts and they leave? Have you heard yourself saying this to yourself? Yeah, me too. And it's a tough one because the further that you give into that thought, the more likely you are to act on that. Even subconsciously, you may start avoiding them or blocking them or not taking their calls or not engaging with their texts, right? And all because you think that they don't like you, right? And again, you have to go and sit in this, what I call sitting steady in the boat, and this ambiguity and living in the gray zone. And the gray zone is, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. And that's tough, right? But I say this to myself a lot, and it's been creeping up more lately, and probably the pandemic has a bit to do with that. But, you know, especially, and this goes back to the comparison, you know, I'll see people, you know, and they're going out with their friends, you know, or they're like, you know, I saw 2 people on Friday as I was coming back in. I mean, I was going to work that night, but they were like, oh yeah, I'm going out to a baby shower. Oh, this one's going over here. And so immediately I started to think, oh wow, like, you know, she's really maintained this friendship for some time. Well, she let it slip that she hadn't even seen this friend in 2 years. And I was like, oh, well, you know, like I'm thinking like that she sees them every single day and they're like best friends, right? So again, it's not only this comparison, but then I plays into this, how long till I burn my relationships? It's not healthy. And so I try to think and act on something more positively. Let me go on the next phrase. The final phrase can sort of be a catch-all, and this is what I call the I hate me phrase. And the I hate me phrase can be lots of things. It can take on many forms and many phrases, but all end up with the same outcome, not making you feel good about you. And these phrases can be things like, I'm such a fuck up. Why did I say that? Oh, you really messed this up again. When are you gonna learn? Oh, you're never gonna get better, right? It's abuse, right? Like, think about if you said those things to another person, or if another person said those things to you. You know, same thing with cutting or drinking, you know. If someone was like cutting you or saying these verbally things to you, what would you think then? Or even better, if you heard someone saying that to another person, what would you think? What would you say, right? You would think it was abusive. And so I call this the I hate me mantra. And so when you find yourself saying some of these things like, oh, I fucked that up, or, I'm never going to get this right, try replacing it with something like, hey, you know what? I don't drink anymore, and that's awesome. Hey, you know what? I don't cut anymore, and that's a great improvement. Hey, you know what? I'm living on my own financially, and I'm doing okay. It can be tough, but it does work. The summation here on today's video is that right now you may have more negative phrases that you tell yourself than positive ones, or maybe it's reverse, or maybe you're on a roll and you get into lots of really positive phrases, and then maybe you have a moment where or a week or a bad spell, and then you're stuck more on negative. The thing here is there is no black or white, right? It's gray thinking. And so when you find yourself in these negative spaces, you pull yourself back and you try to replace the phrase or the lexicon with something positive. This takes time, this takes practice. Ways that I actually use to kind of embed these phrases into my vocabulary, my thought patterns, they didn't just come to me. I've been working at this for 8 years. I wrote them down. I put them on my phone. I set reminders. I'd have an alarm go off every day. You don't know that. Don't make assumptions. Don't jump to conclusions. That just was like a phone reminder every day. The key is to keep working on it. And remember, I say this a lot, there are no quick overnight fixes. Your borderline or your CPTSD or your emotional dysregulation didn't develop overnight, and the way you cope with it isn't going to show up overnight either. My name's Jen. You've been watching BPD Woman. We have been talking about the positive things that help my BPD that I tell myself, and I've been talking about the negative self-talk that's not helped my BPD. Please like, share, subscribe, comment below, and until I see you next time, please be effective.